Let's drop the illusion. Cheating doesn't show up like thunder. It moves like smoke, slow, quiet, invisible, until it's already under your skin. You don't hear it coming. You don't see the moment it starts. But one day, you realize something feels colder, distant, unfamiliar. She's still there. She still smiles, still says, "I'm fine." But her eyes no longer land on you the way they used to. Here fiction feels programmed, no longer alive. Maybe you've felt it before. That tightness in your chest, that quiet voice inside whispering, something's not right. You weren't being paranoid. You were sensing what your mind didn't want to name, because betrayal rarely begins with a kiss. It begins when presence becomes performance, when connection turns into convenience, when her warmth becomes rationed like a limited resource. This isn't a message designed to plant fear. It's here to offer clarity, to give voice to what you've already been feeling, but haven't dared to say out loud. And if you're ready to stop second-guessing your instincts, if you're ready to see what's been quietly unfolding all along, leave a comment below. I'm ready to know the truth, because the journey of a grounded man doesn't begin with control or blame. It begins with awareness and the courage to face what's real. Sign number 1. She disconnects but keeps smiling. Here's the first sign, and it doesn't hit like a wave. It creeps in like fog, quiet, slow, and easy to dismiss. She hasn't left. She still wakes beside you. She still makes coffee, still says, "Good morning," but her voice doesn't carry the same warmth. Her words land without weight. She says she's fine, but it feels rehearsed, more reflex than truth. Like she's saying what she's supposed to say, not what she feels. This is the beginning of disconnection. Not dramatic, not loud, but real. You tell a joke, she laughs, but the laughter doesn't fill the room. It stops at her lips. Her eyes don't join in. Her body doesn't lean closer. She used to light up. Now she dims politely. It's not cruelty. It's not neglect. It's absence, masked as presence. A Stoic man notices this, not because he's insecure, but because he's attentive, because he understands that the heart speaks louder in silence than in words. She's still next to you, but her energy is elsewhere. You feel it. The conversations that used to flow now feel like effort. The moments that used to be shared now feel like tasks. And when you ask, she says she's tired. That work is stressful, that she just needs space. But none of that invites you in. It pushes you out gently, but intentionally. These are not explanations. They're exit strategies in disguise. When a woman begins to emotionally detach, she doesn't make noise. She makes distance, not in miles, but in meaning. She'll stay just connected enough to keep you calm, just affectionate enough to stop you from questioning, just close enough so you won't walk away first. But here's what's really happening. You are not crazy. You're not overthinking. You are witnessing the slow breakdown of intimacy. You're watching connection be replaced by performance. She still touches you, but it feels like duty. She still listens, but her eyes wander. And the most dangerous part, you begin to adapt. You start to call it normal. You silence your gut. You suppress your suspicion because confronting it feels heavier than denial. But the Stoic man doesn't live in illusion. He sees patterns, not excuses. He respects intuition, not denial. He recognizes that when love turns into obligation, when affection is rationed, when presence becomes performance, something deeper is unraveling. This is how betrayal begins. Not in a hotel room, not in a text thread, but in the erosion of emotional honesty. And if you wait for proof, you'll miss the truth, because by the time it's obvious, you've already been erased emotionally. The Stoic path isn't about chasing clarity through confrontation. It's about recognizing disconnection when it whispers and knowing when to act. Not to accuse, but to protect your own peace. So ask yourself, is she still with you, or is she just around you? There's a difference, and if you feel it, you're not imagining things, you're waking up to them. Sign 2. She starts hiding in plain sight. The second sign doesn't come with noise, it comes in silence. It doesn't scream, it whispers, and that's why it's dangerous, because most men miss it. She doesn't disappear, she doesn't storm out, she doesn't say, "We need to talk." She just edits. Her life becomes a series of chapters you're no longer invited to read. The everyday details, the ones that made you feel part of her world, slowly vanish. She used to tell you everything: what annoyed her at work, what she dreamt the night before, what made her laugh out loud in the middle of the day. But now, the feed goes quiet. You're still together, she still talks, but the depth is gone. She gives you headlines, not stories, summaries, not substance. She's sharing, but carefully, controlled, safe. You don't hear what's really happening. You hear what she wants you to believe is happening. That's the first shift. The second is what she carries in her hand. Her phone. It used to be background noise, face up on the bed, left charging on the table. Now it's always with her, always turned away from you. Notifications muted, screen locked. You didn't ask for her password. You never questioned her loyalty, but somehow she's already defensive. And if you bring it up, she'll say you're being insecure, that you're overreacting, that you don't trust her. But a Stoic man sees beyond accusations. He isn't interested in being right. He's interested in being awake. And what he sees is a pattern of retreat, because truth doesn't flinch under observation. Love doesn't hide behind locked screens, and peace doesn't grow in the shadow of suspicion. This isn't about control. This is about access, the kind of access she used to give freely, and now keeps behind a guarded expression. She used to be open, raw, unfiltered. Now she's cautious, calculated, protected. And here's the truth no one wants to face. When someone begins to live two emotional lives, the first sign isn't distance, it's editing. One missing detail, one subtle change in tone, one locked door in a house that once felt completely yours. She wants you to question your instincts, not her behavior, because as long as you doubt yourself, she doesn't have to explain the shift. But the Stoic man doesn't beg for access. He doesn't need a confrontation. He sees the energy change before the words do. And when she starts to split her life into pieces, one for the world, one for you, and one she hides even from herself, you'll feel it, not in her absence, but in her editing, not in arguments, but in omissions. The conversations become shorter, the glances more careful, the tone a little too practiced. It's not a wall, it's a filter, and you're no longer seeing her unfiltered life. You're seeing what's left behind after she's cropped out, the parts she doesn't want you to know. This is how disconnection begins, in full view, with a smile, with polite conversation, with just enough presence to make you question your own gut. But your instincts aren't broken, they're speaking clearly. And a man grounded in truth listens before he loses himself in doubt. Sign 3. Her body stays, but her intimacy doesn't. She hasn't left. She still sleeps beside you. The lights go out, the doors stay closed, but the room feels colder now, not from temperature, but from something missing between you. The bed is still shared, but it no longer feels like a place of rest. It feels like a line has been drawn down the middle, unspoken, but very real. Some nights, she turns away without a word. Other nights, she reaches for you, but her touch feels off. Too intense, too exact, like a scene she's rehearsed, not a moment she wants. You lie there, trying to understand, is this distance worse than the silence? Or is it the closeness that doesn't feel genuine? This is what many men ignore, that when emotional loyalty fades, physical closeness begins to fracture too. It doesn't always vanish overnight. Sometimes it mutates, sometimes it exaggerates, but it always changes. What once felt natural now feels like performance. What once was warmth is now mechanical. You sense she's not really with you, not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. Her body remains, but her intimacy has already left the room. You try to explain it away. Long day, stress, mood swings. You make excuses for her change. But deep down, your body knows, your spirit knows. Something is missing that can't be measured by frequency or technique. Real intimacy isn't about physical access. It's about emotional presence. And presence is something you can feel even with your eyes closed. When that presence fades, you notice it in the way her hand feels heavier, in how her kiss lacks pause, in the way the moment ends in silence, not satisfaction. It's like touching a reflection, like holding someone who's already gone somewhere else in their mind. And if you ask about it, she'll downplay it. Say you're tired. Say you're thinking too much. Say nothing has changed. But everything has, because sex is not just physical, it's a language. And when the language changes, you don't always need translation. You just need to listen. A Stoic man pays attention. He doesn't argue with his own gut. He respects what his body tells him before his mind catches up. And what you're feeling now, that quiet detachment, that subtle hollowness, is not imaginary. It's not paranoia. It's disconnection, wrapped in routine, disguised as affection. She may still give you her body, but it no longer comes from the same place. It's no longer driven by connection. It's maintenance, it's habit, it's cover. And if you deny that truth long enough, you don't just lose her, you lose yourself. You abandon your intuition in exchange for false comfort. That's the cost of pretending. You betray your awareness to preserve her illusion, but eventually you start to go numb too. And here's what a grounded man understands. Presence cannot be faked, and intimacy cannot be performed forever. So when the fire goes out, don't watch the smoke, hoping it reignites. Look for the match and ask, where else is the flame burning? Sign 4. She starts arguments that don't make sense. The fourth sign rarely starts with an explosion. It begins quietly, in the form of petty disagreements that feel bigger than they should. You didn't text her back immediately. She says, you don't care. You left a dish in the sink. Now you're selfish and inconsiderate. You gave a short answer. She accuses you of speaking with a tone. Suddenly, the smallest things become fuel for conflict, and you're left wondering, what just happened? You try to understand. You think maybe she's stressed. You tell yourself, it's just a bad day. So, you respond gently. You apologize for things that don't feel wrong. You become more cautious. with your words, your tone, your timing. But the more you try to keep the peace, the more unstable things seem to become. And that's when you start to realize this isn't about the coffee cup. It's not about the text. It's not even about what you did. It's about what she's trying to create. See, when a woman starts emotionally detaching, or worse, when she's already emotionally involved elsewhere, she can't remain close to you without contradiction. So she creates distance. But instead of walking away, she builds that distance. Using arguments, she creates conflict, so she doesn't have to confront guilt. Because if she can make you the villain, then she doesn't have to feel like the betrayer. She flips the narrative. You're cold. You're inattentive. You're too much. You're not enough. And if you hear it enough times, you start to question yourself. You start asking, am I the one pushing her away? But a Stoic man doesn't just listen to accusations, he listens to patterns. And what you'll notice in these moments is that the arguments don't seek understanding. They don't seek solutions. They seek justification. It's not communication, it's camouflage, a performance, a deflection, a way to turn attention away from her choices and onto your imperfections, whether real or imagined. And here's the trap. She convinces herself first, then she slowly works to convince you. And if you're not careful, you'll play along. You'll shrink. You'll walk on eggshells. You'll silence your own instincts. Just to avoid triggering another blow-up. You'll trade authenticity for survival. You'll try harder, only to be met with colder energy. You'll adjust yourself, only to find the goalposts keep moving. And the more you give, the more distant she becomes, because this was never about resolution. It was about rewriting the emotional script. If she can make you feel like the problem, then her exit becomes a release, not a betrayal. She can walk away guilt-free, calling it growth, healing, or protecting her peace. But what she's actually doing is protecting a narrative, one that frees her from accountability by placing the burden on you. And you weren't meant to carry it. You weren't born to be a placeholder in someone else's excuse to leave. You are not the villain. In a story she's rewriting to justify disloyalty, a Stoic man sees the game for what it is. He doesn't fight shadows. He doesn't debate with a distorted mirror. He watches. He recognizes manipulation wrapped in emotion. And most of all, he acts from reason, not reactivity. He doesn't try to win the argument. He steps out of the cycle entirely. Because when arguments no longer serve truth, they serve escape. And the man who knows his worth doesn't argue to be understood. He chooses peace over performance. So if the fights don't make sense anymore, if the anger feels rehearsed, if you're apologizing for things you didn't do just to keep her from leaving, understand this. You're not crazy. You're just waking up, and your clarity is the very thing she fears most. Sign 5. Her future no longer includes you, but she won't say it directly. She won't raise her voice. She won't start a fight. She'll just begin removing you quietly, not all at once, piece by piece. She used to say, when we get a place together, now it's, I've been thinking of moving. She used to say, when we travel next year, now it's, I might take some time to explore. You notice the shift. The we becomes me. The plans become vague, and the dreams become solo. She still talks to you. She still shows up, but she no longer includes you in what's coming. At first, you might think it's stress. You tell yourself it's temporary, but deep down, you feel it. Something's gone missing. Your name has vanished. from the vision she once shared so openly, not because of something you did, but because she's already halfway gone in her mind. This is the break most men never see coming, not because it's hidden, but because it's quiet. There's no anger, no accusations, just distance disguised as independence. She doesn't ask you to leave. She just makes you feel like you don't belong, not out loud, but through absence, through edits, through the space she creates that no longer has room for you. And when you bring it up, she says you're overthinking, that you're reading too much into it, that everything's fine. But a Stoic man knows better. He doesn't ignore subtle truths just because they're uncomfortable. He listens beyond words, and what he hears is this: she's already letting go. Not suddenly, systematically. First, emotionally, then mentally, then physically. By the time she finally says she's not sure, she's already certain. And she's just been rehearsing her exit in a way you couldn't see. Until now, her hugs feel robotic, her smiles feel staged, her eyes avoid yours, just long enough to remind you something's wrong. Every time she said, "I need time," she wasn't stalling, she was transitioning, and every day you stayed, trying to reconnect. She was adjusting to disconnection. You feel it in your gut, the way the air feels heavier, the way your presence is tolerated, not cherished. She's removing you from the future before she even removes herself from the present. And if you refuse to see it, you'll end up holding on to something that no longer exists. You'll become a ghost in your own relationship, haunting a love that quietly slipped away. But a grounded man doesn't haunt, he doesn't beg for inclusion in a life he's already been written out of. He doesn't wait for her to make the decision final, because he knows when someone starts planning a life without you, they've already emotionally left you. So what does he do? He doesn't chase, he doesn't argue, he doesn't shrink to fit into her new script. He observes, he accepts, and he acts. Because dignity isn't a loud declaration, it's the silent choice to walk away with clarity, while the other person still believes they're in control. She didn't betray you when she walked away. She betrayed you the moment she stopped showing up, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. The betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't come with slammed doors. It came with quiet distance, with affection that felt forced, with smiles that didn't reach her eyes. And you stayed, hoping things would go back to how they were. You told yourself it was just a phase, just stress, just space. But deep down, you knew. You felt the disconnection, long before she ever said a word. Because cheating doesn't begin in the bedroom, it begins in the silence, in the way she stops choosing you. Not once, but every day. A Stoic man doesn't ignore that. He doesn't argue with absence. He doesn't beg for warmth. In a place that's grown cold, he faces the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, because a man who abandons his own self-respect just to keep someone close loses far more than a relationship. He loses his grounding, he loses himself, and that's not love, that's survival. So if this message hit you deep, if it named something you've been silently carrying, don't look away. Sit with it, then rise from it. Comment clarity below if you're done making excuses for what you already know, because clarity isn't heartbreak, it's freedom. Subscribe to the Stoic Spirit if you're ready to stop chasing what's slipping away and start becoming the man who walks in truth. Like this video if you're choosing peace over performance. Share it with a brother who's still convincing himself. that her absence is just a mood. This space is for men who've been broken, but never bowed, who've been rejected, but not erased, who are learning that walking away doesn't mean weakness. It means worth. We don't chase. We don't fold. We don't beg. We build. We rise. We become. Until next time, stay sharp, stay untouchable, and never forget who you are.